or horn or whatever it was. Happy Monday, guys. Thanks, Druid. Marianne, you rascal. Did you, so I think you, did you do, you gifted subs. Was that today or was that the other day? Whatever, you rascal. Thank you. I so appreciate that. Yeah, it came through with like the hype train, hype chest thing, and it looks like we got a new emoji. I clicked it. I was in the middle of setting up, but in any event, thank you so very much. My dear friends, you guys are the best. I hope you had a good weekend. My weekend was so very unproductive. If you caught me and Jill on Teehee, you're so funny. If you caught me and Jill on our Stitch and Glitch, that's probably about the most productive thing I did all weekend. I did get a new air conditioning, and I think I mentioned that. But yeah, that's this weekend, especially yesterday. I totally slept in. I got up and I was like, my husband and my son both had to work. I'm like, I'm going back to bed. Sometimes you have to do that. You have to do a little bed rotting. I think, what do they call it? A little herkle-durkle. Anyway, I did actually, well, I had to move things around because of, to install the air conditioning into the window and then put my stuff back. I decided while I was at it to clean out a box. Yeah, you're right. Recharge the batteries. Yeah, sometimes it's, and the thing is, a lot of times it's like kind of mental. It's not so much about like having done physical work, but when you've had like a lot on your mind, a lot of mental, strenuous mental work, I guess. But anyway, I was digging through a box that I had. I'm a box person. Like, don't know what to do with this pile. I'll put it in a box till later. Anyway, it was projects in progress box, and like I knew what was in there, but I was like, I've been avoiding it. And I have this knitting project that I've been working on. I don't have it nearby; it's in the other room, but it's a dickie. And it's for anybody out there that knits. I know a few of you do. It's a Arna and Carlos pattern. They are the guys that got really popular, I think, over the pandemic. I think they're Norwegian, Scandinavian of some ilk. I can't remember which country. I think it might be Norway. In any event, they are delightful. Their patterns are delightful. I'm just a very slow knitter. And it's stranded knitting, so it's like knitting a picture. But it was Year of the Tiger, whatever year that was. It's been at least 2 years ago, because it's a tiger. It's a dickie. That's a tiger. And I was like, this will be so badass to wear in the winter with like a blazer or a jacket over it. It looks like you got a tiger sweater. Anyway, I have finished the front. I finished the front of it. The front of it was like the hard part. I'm doing the back now. It's a very consistent pattern on the back. It's basically like just tiger stripes. And then the last thing will be I have to knit the turtleneck. It's got like a turtleneck. So I feel very good about that. It's a project that was purely a joy project. It has nothing to do with anything. But I'm going to get that thing finished. And, it's typically knitting in the summer, knitting wool, It's really not my first choice, but it's a small enough project. And, my knitting projects often, they sort of tend to be, they take me multi-years to finish, or I get about halfway after multi-years and tear the whole thing out. So this one is I'm kind of proud that I've made it sort of over the halfway hump. And I'm going to finish this one. So peer pressure me if you don't see a finish soon. So before I forget, I'm going to need to cancel Thursday. I'm so sorry. August and this last week of July are just nuts. It's like long periods of time where nothing happens, right? And then everything wants to happen the same week or the same month. And that's just the way it is. So I have to sort of do a quick run out of town this week. And it's just, I thought, I guess I can drag all of my equipment, and I'm like, no, it's a very short trip. And so I'm like, you guys will understand. I know you will. So, but I will be back, knocking on wood, should be back regular on Monday, regular stream next Monday. And then we will be starting, Jill and I will be starting like the August schedule, and we'll probably go over it tomorrow night. So again, if you follow us, you'll see it tomorrow night. But I will post something, because typically I'm a business as usual person for the most part, with these occasional, I have to cancel a stream, but I will make sure that you guys see the schedule too. In case you don't follow me and Jill, that you'll get it too. just because there's seminar, there's, I guess week after next, I've got a trip to Ohio. And like a lot of the driving and traveling is on Mondays and Thursdays, you know? Same lady, same. I was like, I've got to get all my reading done before the weekend. I have not even touched this book. It's still sitting in the same spot right here in my book pile since Tuesday. So yeah, you guys know how it is. I know you do. So anyway, what I thought we would do today, I was perusing my bookshelves and, you know, it was something Jill and I were talking about. I'm trying to think, were we talking about it at Stitch and Glitch, or did she and I just talk about it kind of independently? I don't remember. I think we mentioned it at Stitch and Glitch though, because we were talking about dress fabrics and, you know, this whole idea of like pretty much all quilting fabrics in the beginning, with the exception of like chintzes, specialty chintzes and things, they were dress fabrics, you know, like I would say the second half of the 19th century all the way up until the 1970s, really 1980s, when you know, quilting came back in a big way, and companies started making, you know, we got quilting cottons. Like quilting cottons didn't exist before, you know, the 1980s. It was just, you know, nice cotton fabric, that dressmaking fabric, that also worked for quilts. And so that in mind, I have had this book on my bookshelf for a very, very long time. It's Lippincott's Home Manuals, Clothing for Women. It's essentially like a home economics textbook. And there's a whole bunch of writing in it. Unfortunately, they wrote in pencil. I know I can decipher this if I, you know, take a picture and mess around with the balance, you know, the light and dark. I just haven't done that. But the person's name is Josephine Ruth McAllister Hall. So this was some school of some sort. The book is written by Laura Baldt, Baldt. She was the instructor for the Department of Textiles and Clothing at the School of Practical Arts, Teachers College, Columbia University. And the editor was Benjamin R. Andrews, PhD, the assistant professor of household economics, Teachers College, Columbia University. So I don't know. Was McAllister Hall at Columbia University? I don't know. I haven't taken the time to find out. But you know, I've had it for a long time, and I can't remember if it's something I bought sort of during my historical costuming years or not. I have a couple of these types of books, and like Mrs. Beaton's Household, I think it's Mrs. Beaton's Book of Household or something like that. It's like a lot of recipes and stuff. This book, Cutting Out Clothes, and a couple of others. And they were really intended kind of to educate myself, you know, historically on costume, you know, dressmaking. So anyway, that's sort of where this comes from. But I picked it up today. I don't know why. This morning I flipped through it and I'm like, you know what? This kind of, first of all, the first few pages are interesting, just from a historical perspective. And then the next section gets into fabric. And I thought, well, and by the way, I don't think I mentioned 1916. This was published in 1916. So, you know, I realize it's 2026, but so 110 years, but I think it's just safe to say 100 years. You know, 2016 wasn't that long ago, although it feels like a lifetime ago. But yeah, if we think about like how our clothing, you know, choice of clothing, how we buy our clothing, all those things in 100 years time, how much has changed is just like vast and incredible. And so I thought it would be cool to kind of look at this, and also the fabric part of it. It's getting into some of the stuff that like we're looking at in The American Quilt that Jill and I are reading over on Quilt Nerding. Also America's Printed and Painted Fabrics that we are reading. So I was like, I think this is a timely tome. Now we're not going to get past like the first 2 chapters because the rest of this is truly about cutting out clothing and wearing it. There are a couple of color plates in this book, and I took the color plates and the images of fabric that I thought were interesting. I used my phone to do the scan function. So hopefully the plates are maybe a little bit more clear than sometimes they are, like, when I just hold up the book or have a picture. So hopefully these scans look better. We shall see. But anyway, so this is what we're doing today. So, well, let's jump into it. Like I said, the book is Lippincott's Home Manuals, Clothing for Women. Let me share my screen here. By Laura Bald. A D and a T. That's a hard one. So this book, like I said, it's kind of a textbook. And let me look at the publishing info again. So the copyright is 1916, and then there are reprints in 1916, 1917, and 1918. My guess is, as a textbook, it perhaps was replaced after that. They didn't keep reprinting it. They maybe by 1920 or something they had a different textbook. So, and also the idea of like, what are women wearing in 1916? You're gonna see. I'm gonna put this on. Let me find the little thing here. I'm gonna put it on slideshow, so it'll just, as I read, it'll just run through the pictures that you can look at. I don't think that there's some picture of some fabric, and then the rest of it I think should be fairly self-explanatory. They're fashion plates and some other info. So very different than what we're wearing today, wouldn't you say? As I sit here in my t-shirt and jeans and Adidas slides. I couldn't get any more different than the clothing of antiquity. So we'll start with chapter 1. There's a preface, but again, it's kind of getting into like the more textbooky aspects of this. So clothing for women. Chapter 1, clothing budgets and buying. What and how to buy. Income and income spending. Incomes are earned through the labor of the member or members of a family upon whom this responsibility falls. They are spent by the earner or some member of the family upon whom the business of spending devolves. Planning for wise expenditure of income presents one of the most important economic and household problems of the day. Well, that has not changed. Women's responsibility. Oh, here we go. Upon woman, the chief spender, depends the wise or unwise apportionment of the income to the various needs of the family. Shelter, food, clothing, etc. The girl of today, whether or not her future sphere of activity shall lie in the field of business, teaching, or homemaking, must assume her share of responsibility in the business of spending, either her own income or that of others. Whether or not she performs her part wisely depends upon the equipment furnished by her home and school. So this is interesting. It's not necessarily saying like, your husband. So that's kind of interesting. It's they're acknowledging that some women earn their own money, whereas other women might live with their family, and their family could be their father and mother, or it could be their husband. So this is kind of interesting. Women don't have the right to vote yet. Think about this. It's 1916. We don't get the right to vote for 4 more years. Women's opportunity. Abundant opportunity to learn to become a wise spender awaits her in the field of clothing. It is possible for her to provide for herself and others, for whom she may have need to buy suitable wearing apparel that will not deplete the purse, yet give joy and satisfaction to the wearer. When purchasing ready-to-wear garments, she should be able to judge of them as regards their, number 1, durability and the quality of the materials of which they are made, and number 2, their suitability to occasion and wearer, number 3, the becomingness of color and line, and number 4, the price in relation to her allowance. If the allowance permits made-to-order garments, she should be able to make her own selection of materials and designs for the garments and calculate, approximately at least, the cost of the making, in addition to the price of the materials. The same is true of the young woman who may make, in whole or in part, the garments she wears. Now, if you think about this, 1916, ready-to-wear clothing is abundantly available at this point, but it's still kind of new. You know, it's sort of the last quarter of the 19th century, I think, is sort of when we get like department stores, right? Like, and a lot of that was happening over in the UK. But you know, we've got some major players here too. Like, I know Wanamaker's is one that I was reading some stuff about recently. You know, big name. I'm trying to think who else. Sears, of course. You know, I think that's probably a lot of regional department stores. I'm trying to think the ones around here. See, I moved here. I was an adult when I moved here, but I didn't grow up here. But I'm blanking. There was one that was like a pretty big, important one here in Baltimore. But in any event, I'm sure, you know, in the towns where you live, there have probably historically been, you know, Montgomery Ward's. Yeah, I can't remember Montgomery Ward's date, but I think it was probably consistent with Sears. So, like turn of the century. So yeah, you're probably right with Ward's. In any event, what I'm trying to get at here is, you know, you could, if you were pressed for time, you absolutely had at your disposal the opportunity to buy ready-made clothing. And which was so very important really to women in that you no longer have to spend like all of your extra hours aside from cooking and cleaning. You can spend that time making clothing. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. You can go buy it. So life changes again. You know, this is again one of those industrial revolution types of things that have, you know, it snowballed to this point. I guess sort of secondary industrial, you know, the early industrial revolution, of course, is kind of all of like the fabric technology, all the steam powered stuff, you know, railroads, all that. And then this kind of second industrial revolution, when we think about like, sort of the factory model, it's sort of secondary industrial revolution. And, you know, this is the point when we become consumers. And, you know, I think that's a way simplification of this, but I think that there's some truth in it, you know, from the economic standpoint that, you know, there was major upheaval, obviously, with the Industrial Revolution. We went from agricultural to, you know, very, very different way of life. And of course, our cities grew up. But I think it's this second Industrial Revolution, you know, through as you move through the 19th century and hit like the point of Henry Ford's factory system, that I think really it changed the way that Americans worked, or really people kind of in all developed countries at that point worked. But, you know, kind of if you think about here in the U.S., sort of the American work week, that's kind of, you know, that Henry Ford is the one who sort of crafted that. And then this idea of us being consumers, that we can make our lives more efficient if we spend our money buying things instead of making them. And I think that is the really huge moment, or moments, it's over a period of time, obviously, but the moment in our history where we were on the road to becoming what we are today. if that's kind of long-winded, you know, from 1916 to 2026, you know, we're sort of historically at this inflection point, you know, where things like have really, really radically changed. Okay, so moving on. Her training. To become a master workman in the art of clothing herself and others, wisely and well, the young woman should have an interest in the industries concerned in the making of women's apparel, in the production and preparation of the fibers of which the materials are made, the manufacture of the fabrics, and the construction of the garments themselves. She should become familiar with the principles of design which relate to clothing, and through the study of artistic forms in sculpture, painting, and historic costume, Learn to choose for herself and others colors, lines, and shapes that are becoming. Add to this technical skill in clothing design, in the manipulation of fabrics and draping, or in the cutting of cloth by pattern, and in the use of needles, pins, and shears in the construction of garments, and her equipment will be complete. So, going back to the fact that women still know how to sew. We're not at a point where like all of the skills have fallen away, but they don't have to make clothing from scratch anymore. And I think what this book is kind of talking about is, you have to balance your budget between what is fashionable to wear. And you can, home economics is about making these smart decisions. And so this is a time period where actually making your clothing is cheaper. Now today, if you want to go out there and make your own pair, like say your own pair of jeans. Well, I just bought a pair of jeans at the thrift store the other day for just under $4. So that is the pathway I go. If you want to buy a good pair of jeans, of course, there's multiple places. You could go to Old Navy. You could go to Levi's, directly to Levi's themselves. You could go to any department store like Macy's, or for the what would you call it? Like, I guess private labeled goods. You could go to, say, like Kohl's. And, a decent pair of jeans, I don't know, would cost you probably, depending on a sale or something. Yeah, Kohl's. Depending on a sale or something, Kohl's, you could probably buy a pair of jeans as cheap as like $20, $30. Same thing with Old Navy, given a sale, or clearance or something. If you go to Levi's, like a Levi's store or Levi's outlet or order something online, we're talking more like $50, $60. So, and then, designer jeans. I mean, we're in a world today where these like designer streetwear, which would include denim jeans, can go into the hundreds of dollars. But I would say kind of your low level average designer type stuff, $100, couple $100. So you've kind of got these like many price points for a pair of jeans. But given that I am, I wear my jeans until they wear out and I patch them and I fix them, because jeans are one of those things that, like, if you can't find a pair that fits well, you might as well not wear jeans, right? Because like a poorly fitting pair of jeans just ruins the day. So finding a good fitting pair of jeans, is like one of those things where I will either spend zero money on or I will spend a lot of money on. And at one point I did spend a lot of money on the materials to make my own jeans. And it was about $100 that I spent. Now this is maybe 10, 15 years ago. So it was, first of all, the pretty expensive denim. And it's like true denim, not the stretch denim. This is that true, it's got a red line on its selvage. It's cone cotton. And I mean, not Kona, but cone, C-O-N-E. It was a mill. Actually, technically, you don't need an industrial sewing machine to sew denim. There's a couple of things that I learned, like when you have to sew over multiple layers, you of course use a denim needle. The needle is the most important part, is that it's able to penetrate the denim. But you actually hammer the denim to compress it and make it, and then you use like a little thingamajig on the back of your presser foot to lift, your whole presser foot so that it feeds evenly. There's a whole bunch of these different little things, these little tips. So anyway, the cone denim, that was very expensive. That was probably most of the $100. And and I'm saying $100. It was probably more than that. It was probably about $130. Then, yes, there's threads. There's, specialty thread for denim. It's that heavier weight, kind of like the gold stuff that, Levi's are known for. And then the rivets, you've got the button and the rivets. And then I had, along with it, the class to make them. So $130 versus $4 at the thrift store. I'm giving you the kind of this long-winded explanation of, in 1916, if you were able to take the time, you could absolutely sew clothing for yourself and your family way cheaper than you would buy ready to wear. But think about how this has completely flip-flopped or just really kind of muddled itself. Like, again, I can go get something very cheap at a thrift store if I can find exactly what I want. That's a crapshoot. I've really lucked out. I was so excited when I found these jeans the other day, and I was like, oh my God, this is a brand that I know fits me. And I know that this absolute pair, this pair of jeans will fit me. And they were $4. Or I could spend hundreds to learn how to make my own jeans, or I can spend hundreds to buy designer jeans. So, we have a very interesting relationship with fabric in our clothing today, is really what I'm getting at. Okay. What clothing should denote? Clothing and circumstances. Well-ordered clothing should, first of all, denote fitness to circumstances. We may dress as richly as our circumstances permit, but should let the keynote of that richness be simplicity. And by that, my simple black t-shirt with a humorous meme cat on it. Simplicity and tastefulness. We should choose attractive and suitable garments or stuffs of pleasing colors. There should be evenness of attire. We should not sacrifice one garment for lavish expenditure upon another. Extremes of fashion are to be avoided. They are in bad taste and, moreover, extravagant. To follow the extreme of fashion is like chasing a will-o'-the-wisp. The fancy is subject to continual change, the purse to depletion. And I have to agree with that. I think of all the times I bought stuff that was kind of trendy, and it's like, what a waste of money. Like, it didn't work with my body type, it wasn't comfortable, That's why I love a well-fitted pair of jeans and a comfortable shirt. And if I have to dress it up, I have some fancy shoes. I do wear dresses sometimes. There are people out there that have seen me in something other than t-shirts over the past few years. Okay, clothing fit for occasion. Clothing should suit the occasion upon which it is to be worn. It is a grave mistake to go about unsuitably dressed, wearing clothing obviously meant for another occasion. A tweed tailored suit at a formal reception, a much frilled short-sleeved chiffon blouse in a business office, or a half-worn satin gown in the kitchen do not bespeak fitness to occasion. Yet how often are such misfits seen? Wow, even today. Go check out People of Walmart during prom season and you'll see all kinds of things. The tailor-made suit were better replaced by a simple gown of inexpensive cotton material, if need be, but showing some note of the wearer's individuality. The satin dress were better made into a good petticoat, and the price of a petticoat expended on a suitable but attractive wash dress to take its place. And the chiffon blouse replaced by a semi-tailored waist, meaning a shirt, of linen, cotton, or silk. On the other hand, this fact is not to be lost sight of, that women, having established for themselves a place in the business world, need no longer adhere to that rigid type of costume with which they invaded the field, the tailored shirtwaist and skirt. A generous bit of femininity may enter into business attire, but let it be dignified and not frivolous. And the mention of the shirtwaist, we think of, from a quilting perspective, we often, with reproductions, we love shirtings. And shirtings get their start for women's clothing in the last century, so late 1900s. Women's clothing, and one of these pictures here kind of shows it, where you're kind of going from a gown or a dress to separates. This is kind of not it. This one is, these are more kind of like outfits, but I think it's the one that's the historical. Well, this one she could be wearing okay, here. you see, these are the dresses, and those then give way to that Gibson girl. I always think of the Gibson girl as sort of like the a mental example that most people can picture of, you know, the white blouse and the black or gray or brown or navy blue skirt, long, you know, floor length skirt, and those shirt waists, those shirts. That fabric is seen so often in quilts. And it is definitely an indicator of the last quarter of the 19th century or early 20th century when you find a quilt with shirtings. And so, you know, this is the age where women's dresses became bifurcated and they were wearing blouses and skirts. And that is something that didn't happen until this point. Clothing and environment. Good sense should guide us in suiting our clothing to our environment. We should please ourselves in this matter, but need not offend our neighbors, nor make ourselves the jest of others. Social life in a small town necessitates fewer and simple toilettes than the varied functions in a large city. This is a little offensive. The busy little housewife will have less use for beribboned negligee than the society belle. The girl who spends her summers in the hills, 10 or 15 miles from a railroad station, will have little use for French-heeled slippers and chiffon dance frocks. We have all seen such flagrant examples of a misguided sense of the fitness of things, the flaunting of finery by some before their less pretentious neighbors. Soiled and draggled negligee meant only for a boudoir, garbing a woman at housework, or dainty slippers and chiffon gown, traipsing across the lawn or dusty roads about a modest country house. So this is the kind of thing, it's basically like, you know what, if you live out in the country, you don't need anything fancy, sis. You could get by on your plain old, like, you know, house dress made out of a potato sack. Now, if you live in the city, now you are able to be frivolous, I suppose. See, this is one I don't like. You know what? If I live out in the country and I want to vacuum in a negligee, I shall. We have come far in 100 years as that goes. Clothing and the wearer. Last but not least, clothing should be chosen for its suitability to the wearer. It should be an expression of her highest individuality. It has been asked how many women dress for their own self-satisfaction. Well, you know what? If I want to vacuum in a negligee, that's my self-satisfaction, right? Right? A sundress. Yes, your uniform, right? Have we not set for ourselves standards of excellence towards which we strive in other modes of conduct? Why not, then, in the conduct of our own clothing? We should never give ourselves over to a blind following of fashion. This dwarfs our individuality and handicaps our sense of freedom. This is totally like saying the complete opposite of what this previous one about clothing and environment said. Because scores of other women, dissimilar in every way except their ambition to be in style, have adopted some particular mode of dress, is no reason that you and I should adopt it without further consideration. Paul Poirot, speaking of the well-dressed woman, says, "The well-dressed woman picks out her gowns, her adornments, simply because they make her appear more pleasing, not because other people are wearing that style." Well, you know what, Paul Poirot, he was a haberdasher, a taillier. He was making women's gowns, so like, come on, I'm not taking advice from him. There is only one motto for the well-dressed woman, and the old Romans expressed it in one word, decorum, which means that which is suitable. It takes time and patience. It is hard to attain, and that is why there are so few well-dressed women. This is a woman writing this. Like, stop taking shots at us, lady. But those who really are well-dressed enjoy a sense of satisfaction equal to the triumphs of any other art. And they impart a breath of life, beauty, and color to things around them. They inspire a love of harmony, of good taste. Above all, they are living examples of decorum. It is our privilege to express ourselves in the manner of clothing, in terms of freedom, the freedom to think and choose for ourselves Such a snoot, right? um, to choose for ourselves apparel that is individual, attractive, durable, well cut, and well made. To always be well dressed is one of the greatest assets a woman can have, and this is possible even to the woman of limited means. It becomes, in any case, a matter of the intelligent selection and purchase of her apparel and the scrupulous care of the same. Planning a wardrobe. Allowance for clothing. It is the custom of many, and should be with all, to make a budget or plan for spending the income so that a portion may be saved for education, travel, recreation, investment, etc. Isn't that nice when you have enough money to go around? A certain percentage of the whole is set aside for shelter, food, clothing, and other necessary expenses. The percentage allowed for each varies according to the income and the tastes and desires of those who plan the spending. In planning a family budget, the amount allowed for clothing is usually 12 to 16% of the total. That's interesting. I would say in no way do I spend 12 to 16% of our household income on my clothing, nor does my husband. We bought a couple of shirts from Duluth the other day that were on sale. He wears pretty much blue plaid shirts when he's not wearing his uniform. So, it's literally become a joke now that he has every version of blue plaid there is in the universe in the form of a shirt of some kind. So, and he buys them anywhere he finds them, everywhere from like the big department stores and Kohl's and Walmart and Duluth and etc. He's an interesting man. The percentage slightly increases as the income grows. Ellen Richards, I don't know who Ellen Richards is. Some of your clothing is older than your daughter. I would be in the same boat if stuff from back then fit me, but giving birth to my son basically wrecked everything that I hold dear. And I never quite got it back. Oh, not that it still fits you. Yeah, I do. I've held on to a couple things from college. I have this awesome pair of Calvin Klein velvet flared jeans. I got them at it was like a sample sale kind of thing. They were in a bigger size. Like I never wore a size 2, because I'm tall. Like I'm not of the dimensions, even when I was super skinny, to wear, like designer clothing sample sizes. But it was some type of sample sale that I went to. And they were, I think they might have been like the stuff that went to the high-end boutiques and not to like, Macy's and Nordstrom, that kind of but they were Calvin Klein. In any event, I got them. I probably paid a lot of money for them in college, that today I would have considered a bargain, but I don't know. I probably paid $20 or $30 for them back then. And I wore them on my 21st birthday and I was really cute. And, I don't remember wearing them much after that. But I moved here and I was like, oh, these don't fit, but I'm going to keep them. Because you never know. And I've kept them. And I could probably maybe fit like my arms in them, not really my legs. But I just keep thinking one day those clothes are going to fit me again. And they're at this point definitely over 30 years old. So moving along, Ellen Richards, whoever she may be, proposed an ideal family budget which allows 15% for clothing, 25% for food, 20% for rent, 15% for running expenses, and 25% for the higher interest of life, and 15% for family clothing is a good working rule for a family. When an individual or family budget has been made and the allowance for clothing set aside, the spender should then apportion this allowance so as to provide for the purchase of all necessary garments. Yes, hope does spring eternal. The times and methods of purchase must depend upon the spender's way of handling the allowance. This problem is worthy of thoughtful consideration, and it is to be hoped that every reader of this book who may not have had an allowance to spend upon clothing will seek to have such an arrangement made. The experience of planning a clothing budget will prove valuable in many ways. It enables one to learn not only how to spend well, but also how to dress well. There is no reason that the girl or woman of moderate or limited means should not be as attractively clothed as her affluent sister, if her garments be well chosen. If one needs to count the cost of each garment, more thought is apt to be put upon the selection of clothing than one simply yields to every fitful whim of desire. Than when one simply yields to every fitful whim of desire. So I'm going to kind of, some of this they get into, like how much to spend on each thing. So I'm just kind of going to sort of summarize some of these. But, so apparel to be purchased, ready to wear. So this means stuff you shouldn't make yourself. Hosiery, knitted underwear. I guess this was common. I'm assuming they mean probably exactly what we have today, like cotton, stretchy jersey sort of stuff. But the fact they call it knitted underwear, I picture like sweater underwear. But I think they probably just mean cotton jersey stuff. Corsets, shoes, slippers, overshoes, sweater, top coats, and suits, usually. Raincoat, umbrella, hats, gloves, handkerchiefs, and handbag. Consideration must first be given to the number of each article needed, the approximate cost of each, and the distribution of allowance. And then the distribution of the allowance be made to meet the payment for these. Like, duh, who hadn't thought of that? So they're going to talk about, the ways of buying. You can get made-to-order garments. You can get ready-to-wear garments. So made-to-order is what we consider today to be still like the bespoke, haute couture. You have a dressmaker. They have your measurements, and they know how, people, it was expensive then. It's expensive now. Really, like, the housewives get to go do this. And I mean, like, not housewives in general, but the housewives. Other types of celebrities get to do this, and very rich people. Ready to wear is basically everything that you could buy in a store, a regular old store, off the hook, off the peg, and then garments made at home. This is an interesting one. So, rejection of worn or unsuitable garments. At the close of each season, when garments are to be put away for future wear, you mean you don't just pile them in a chair till the next season? Because I could tell you that's where all my long sleeve t-shirts are. They're piled in a chair at the bottom of my bed upstairs. All outer garments should be carefully brushed, aired, folded, and wrapped in paper or cloth to keep out dust. And in the case of woolen garments, with camphor balls inside the wrappings to protect from moths. When garments are badly soiled, they should be cleansed before putting away, either by a professional cleaner or oneself. All undergarments should be washed and mended if necessary. They will then be ready to wear on the first warm or cold days of the following season. If one be fortunate enough to have a large dark closet, all woolen or fur garments, assuming that you can afford fur, may be hung on garment hooks and covered with moth-proof paper bags. That's interesting that they're talking about paper. I mean, I know, like, my grandmother had, like, fabric garment bags to put over, like, wool coats and things, in the summer. Garments showing possibilities of reconstruction for oneself or another member of the family should be ripped and brushed or cleansed. They're not saying cleaned, cleansed. So moths? Yeah, that's what the camphor balls are for. My grandmother was like a mothball queen. Her house always smelled so clean, like soap. Like everything, like, because she washed and cleaned everything all the time. But her closets were like just mothball, like knock you over as soon as you open the door. So cleanse your clothes. So cleansed and then pressed, ready for the remodeling process. Worn and unsuitable garments, if not beyond repair and future service, but past service for oneself, may be cleansed and passed on to some charitable organization that will look after their repair or reconstruction before giving them over to those in less fortunate circumstances. Did these moths become extinct? What do you mean? Moth-proof paper bags? I mean, that's what she's talking about. A list of necessary garments to be purchased should then be made, and approximate amount to be spent apportioned, with a balance to provide for repairs and cleansing. Yeah, no, clothing moths I think are still. I've had a problem with them. Here's the challenge: when you buy vintage clothing and lots of vintage linens, I learned the hard way. You got to put that stuff in quarantine, or you will get clothing moths, and I've had a problem with them in the past. But yes, they have not become extinct in any way, shape, or form, and I guess it was the challenge back then too. So this is interesting. So she's going to start talking about each of the garments. Hosiery. Buy hosiery of the best wearing quality the allowance permits, of proper size, many buy too short a length, and of sufficient number to admit of daily changes in order to save strain of wear. Well, daily changes are also nice, so you can wash stuff. Fine standard makes the colors of which will not fade or crock, and which have good wearing quality. Knitted underwear. Let's find out what that says. In cotton, wool, or silk. Well, yeah. Is to be had in 1 or 2-piece suits. The 1-piece suit is to be recommended as less bulky. The choice of fiber depends upon one's idea of comfort and of the necessity of economy. Corsets. Yeah, we still got corsets then. Should be bought where attention is given to careful fitting unless one can afford to have them made to order. They should be soft and pliable, admitting free movement of the body and comfort whether sitting or standing. Few bones are necessary for slight figures, heavier boning, but not too stiff for stout figures. I am a stout figure. Shoes and slippers. Individual taste and comfort must guide the buyer of shoes in making her purchases. Do not try to economize foolishly in this direction. Choose shops in which intelligence directs the fitting of the foot. Find the type of shoe that for constant wear gives the most comfort, which type need not make the foot look ugly. And stick to that type with its variations for dress occasions or for service. Wear a broad toe if that fits the foot. High heels are not desirable for regular wear. Do not wear anything that is uncomfortable. You can obey this rule and still clothe the feet in good-looking shoes. Let's see. Sweaters for hard service are better made of wool. Attractive sport garments are made of fiber silk, bringing the cost within the limits of a purse, which could not contemplate a silk sweater. So fiber silk. I'm wondering if that's... Yeah, I'm wondering if that, like, she's really referring to, like, rayon or a blend, maybe a blend with silk. Handkerchiefs and gloves. Inexpensive handkerchiefs of linen can be found in special sales. One should have plenty and a few Sunday best. Beside, to keep one fresh and trim in matters of small detail. In the matter of gloves, it is not always wise to accept the product of the special sales. At sales, buy only standard makes that are specially priced. The gloves are another thing, like, and handkerchiefs. I mean, who has handkerchiefs? The only people I know that still use handkerchiefs are, like, old men. And even them, they don't use them anymore. My grandfather always had a cloth handkerchief in his pocket. But I can't think of anybody else that I know, again, other than elderly men. And gloves. Like, I remember my mom of course, talking about having to wear like little white gloves when she was young, going to church. So you have handkerchiefs or gloves, Druid, or both? I'm guessing handkerchiefs, maybe. Now, I have to say, like, when I'm sick, I will use Kleenex. Oh, okay, yes. Only for funeral hankies, yes. That makes sense. Having something to cry, and yeah. So, like, I use Kleenex when I'm sick, but I do carry around in my bag, like, a bandana. Because, if you end up doing something that makes you sweat, bandanas are nice. If you have a good cry, bandanas work. Right? So did your grandma listen? Shove the snotty ones up your long sleeves? Oh my gosh, Marianne, I did that. I did that back in the fall. It was back, I'm trying to remember. I think it was in the fall. Maybe it was early this year. At some point, I kind of had the sniffles. I wasn't like totally sick, but I was sniffly enough that I kind of had to keep a Kleenex with me. And I was worried about. I'm famous for forgetting I have a Kleenex in my pocket and washing my pants, or and so I was tucking them in my sweatshirt sleeves. My grandmother always had a tissue for you up her sleeve. Oh my gosh. I used to make fun of my grandmother so much when I was a kid about that. And, now I'm like, oh my God, I've turned into her. What about hats? We don't wear hats. Oh, taught by nuns with hankies up their sleeves. I'd be afraid of a nun with a hanky up her sleeve. What else has she got up there? Something to whack you with. Hats. The selection of hats is one of the most critical features of the clothing process. Hats, shoes, and gloves are the points of a woman's costume which most quickly offend or gratefully please the eyes of the beholder. Of these, we now just have our shoes because, women generally don't wear hats anymore. Unless, I know African-American women often still wear hats to, special occasions and church. That's kind of culturally normal. And there's the fascinator. Everybody loves the fascinator. But yes, hat hair. You don't want to have to take off your hat and then have hat hair. Absolutely. I did buy a hat recently. I bought one of those hats that has the fans mounted in the brim. I haven't had a chance to wear it yet. It's very ridiculous looking, but oh my word, it feels like it's going to be a good thing for a very hot day. Okay, so she kind of gets into budgets here, and the prices kind of surprised me a little bit. For instance, a wool suit, $25. Hats. She's got hats anywhere from $4 to $8, $4. Where did I see shoes? A parasol, $2. So shoes anywhere from $4. Yeah, it looks like $4 is probably the most expensive she's got for shoes. Isn't that crazy? Like today, okay, so let's just assume you want to buy, any kind of hat. Let's say that you're going to go to a Kentucky Derby party. You might, I don't think anyone here is going to say like, oh, I'm going to spend the most amount of money I possibly can. Now, if you're going to go buy a hat or make a hat or something, you're going to probably stick in like the, $25 range. But shoes, you like, especially if you have like any kind of foot problems, you want comfortable shoes. And I ordinarily, really the only shoes I buy these days that, I wear long enough to wear out are tennis shoes. And I spend a decent amount of money on tennis shoes when I do buy them. I don't buy them that often. So, $50 to $100 is not out of the realm. Whereas for a hat, I would not spend any money on a hat for any reason. So that's interesting. Okay. So then she goes on to give the prices of, if you want to make some of these things at home, how that's going to save you. So a corset cover is literally just like a camisole. And, Men's shoes, yeah. I would say men's shoes I bought are really just tennis shoes. I don't know that I bought any like men's, um, like casual shoes or anything. I know a friend of mine, she has almost always worn men's shoes since we were in high school. We were, best friends in high school, and she started wearing men's shoes then, and she's never stopped, I don't think. Yeah, for sure, winter boots and things like that. You definitely get more sturdy things in the men's department than in the women's department. Because, that's interesting to bring that up, too. Like, things for women, like, if you want a pair of winter boots, and I know, you live in Michigan, right? So you've got, like, more snow and stuff to deal with than I do. But if you go to look at women's boots and stuff, I feel like women's winter boots are these frivolous nonsense things. And then you've got men's boots that are, like, legit, like you could actually wear in snow. I don't think I've ever bought a pair of winter boots like in the store. I've always mail ordered something that, is like specifically like the people in Alaska wear, because, if you're going to have something that, keeps you warm and have traction. Absolutely. So the price that she's giving for, making a petticoat or a nightgown, she's talking about yards of fabric that cost 25 cents, trims, buttons, a penny each, yards of lace, 15 cents each. These are just simply, this is just not simply the economy that we have anymore. 5 yards of these lightweight fabrics that she's talking about. White poplin, 18 cents a yard. She's talking about Nainsook. It's Nainsook. I think that is a type of silk, or a silk alternative, like, a faux silk. I think that's what that is. It's a lightweight fabric regardless, but we're talking 25 cents a yard. Cambric, 23 cents a yard. This is just simply not an economy that we enjoy anymore. I think I probably mentioned this in Stitch a Glitch this weekend with Jill. I actually bought some fabric for the first time in a very long time. And it was cotton voile, which is, very fine, thin. And I was very pleased to find it's like a fabric warehouse place online where I could get it. I want to say I paid like maybe $6 a yard for it, $7 a yard. It was, I think, very affordable considering what it is. It's just plain, solid color, very lightweight cotton. And I also bought some, and you guys might not have been there, or you might have been there. Here, let me just stop right now and show you something cool. In case you did not see it, I bought this fabric. It's a African wax print, and I thought it was so cool because it looks like an enormous print of some of the. Okay, Marian, you were late, so you may not have seen this. This is like an enormous print of some of those 1800s, like coral. And this is like, let's see, where is it? This right here. This section is like the fondue prints, the rainbow prints. You see how it like is kind of an ombre from like a turquoise to a darker blue. Yeah. I was so excited. This place has a number of African wax prints, and this one, when I saw it, it came in a couple of different colorways, but this one I was like, I need that, because it's like a giant print of like a reproduction fabric. Like, I don't think that's their intention. I think they designed this just, probably from some kind of, designs, but in any event. But long story short, what I'm saying is I was pleased to get these fabrics that I purchased. Yeah, anything, whenever I sew for clothing, I always pre-wash. With the exception, obviously, would be something that you wouldn't be able to wash, like silk. And I've made wool things. that you can't throw in a washing machine, but I don't sew a lot of stuff that you can't just throw in the washing machine. So yeah, that I'll pre-wash that. And we'll see, in terms of any kind of dye or anything that might come out of it, we'll see. But where I was going with this was, it is expensive to buy, any kind of fabric yardage these days, and like this fabric was such an exception, to buy like a, just clothing type fabrics. We're talking anywhere from like, $10 or $15 a yard. If it's something that is very desirable to me, I can get with that. $20 a yard. If it's got silk and stuff in it, I get it. It's going to be more expensive. But just cotton fabrics, and I have not shopped for quilting cottons in I don't know how long, but word on the street is, for the most part, they are, in your fabric stores, in your quilt shops, are like getting up to like $16 and $17 a yard. I did buy I bought directly from Mary Englebright the other day, because the yardage to finish off my bicentennial quilt. So that was my other fabric purchase. And I want to say that cost me $14 a yard. And, that's why I don't need more fabric, really. That one was very, very specific fabric. But long story short, again, it is not economical to make your own clothes today. It's just not. Okay, so I've been very long-winded here. I wanted to get to the fabric part, which is chapter 2. So let's keep moving. I'll put the slideshow back. Okay, so fabric. Facts for consumers. This is chapter 2. In order to become wise and intelligent buyers, not only of fabrics, but of ready-to-wear garments as well, purchasers should have a practical knowledge of the textile field. They should know, first, the names and general characteristics and qualities of the fibers used in the manufacture of the cloths of which their garments are made. Second, the methods of production and preparation of these fibers for manufacturing purposes. Third, enough of the processes of weaving the cloth to be interested in the value and effect of the different weaves. Fourth, the adulteration of fibers practiced by the manufacturers to the detriment of the cloth and the deception of the consumer. Gasp. Fifth, the names, prices, and widths of staple materials and such findings as tapes, braids, etc., and the general uses to which they may be put. Sixth, the condition of the laborers engaged in the making of women's garments, that sympathy and interest may be stirred to help in the betterment of these conditions. What? Oh my gosh. Did you guys hear that? Let me read that again. The conditions of the laborers engaged in the making of women's garments, that sympathy and interest may be stirred to help in the betterment of these conditions. In 1916. Yes. Now, I don't remember what year was the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. It was around this time period. So she is obviously officially talking about people here in our country in terms of, labor conditions. But that's the reason why we ended up with unions, is because of these poor labor conditions. So if you think about the history part of it, it should not really come as that much of a surprise. And in fact, I think we found in reading The American Quilt, I think that was one of the things that I noted last week, was that the women's, the Lowell girls, the women that were working in the mills up in Lowell, Massachusetts, and some of these other, honestly, I don't know about anything in the mills down south, but it was primarily like the Lowell girls were part of the reason why we have unions. Those women became some of the I'm trying to remember the name of it's literally in the book. I could look at it. It's the, let's see. If I can find it quickly. because I did highlight it. It was the women's, one of the women's unions. Of course I won't find it, will I? Ah, no, here it is. The Lowell Female Labor Reform Association was one of the first labor unions. So that's the Lowell Mills. And so that's beginning, let's see, 1820s and 1830s is when all this is happening. By 1834 is when working conditions had deteriorated. And then you've got these reform societies that are cropping up in the 1840s. So by 1916, I guess this is well documented that labor conditions are not good in some factories. So we're starting with the mills there, but then the garment sewing factories, are the other part of this. And, they experience the same kinds of bad conditions. And like the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire being one of the most famous, awful examples. And I think I'm trying to think if that was like 1890 something or was it the 19 teens. But it would have been contemporary to this book, so shouldn't come as that much of a surprise to us. Okay, so cotton fiber, from which cotton cloth is made, is the soft white downy substance or seed hairs which enclose the seeds of the cotton plant within the pod or boll until ripened. Under the microscope, it shows a flat, ribbon-like fiber with thick edges and a slight twist at intervals throughout the length, which varies from 1 to 2 inches. 1 to 2 inches, yeah, that's about right. The twist gives it elasticity and makes it valuable for spinning. It has a single cell, the walls of which are thick and covered with vegetable wax and oil. Cotton has some elasticity. It's hygroscopic or absorbent quality is 5 to 8%, but it can, in moist atmospheres, absorb more than this. It has less luster than linen, even when mercerized. The surface of cotton cloth is fuzzy. Cotton is not quite as good a conductor of heat as linen, but being much less costly to manufacture is more generally used for clothing. Okay, 1911. Yeah, that date was in my head for some reason, but I'm always wrong about dates, so I just assume I wasn't right. But okay, yeah, 1911. So that had just happened within like 5 years before this book. So that's got to be kind of what's at the, what's in the minds of this author. Flax fabric, of which linen cloth is woven, is a bast fiber which lies just under the outer bark of the flax plant. Under the microscope, it appears to be a cylindrical fiber with pointed ends, cellular in structure, with lines or cracks crossing at intervals along its length. The fibers vary from 12 to 36 inches in length. They have a high luster, are stronger than cotton fiber, but have no twist and are not elastic. Flax fiber has an absorbent quality of 5 to 8%, but may reach 20%. It is the best conductor of heat of the 4 fibers. And so here's something to know about linen, and this I learned in historical costuming. Linen is more absorbent than cotton, and it wicks. And it, because of those the directionality of the fiber and the fact that it's a long fiber versus the short staples of cotton, it can wick away sweat and moisture and kind of like displace it across the fibers. So if you ever do historical costuming or have to work out in the elements, you are going to be much happier in linen. And that should come as no surprise. I mean, we wear linen in the summer for that reason, because it's absorbent and it wicks the moisture away and keeps it away from your body. Whereas cotton will absorb, but it doesn't necessarily have anywhere to go. it can't disperse across a wider area the way that linen can, because linen has that capillary action. Whereas, again, short fibers of cotton are just going to kind of keep things where they are. The preparation of flax fiber for weaving involves many tedious processes. I won't go over them. Wool fibers, from which woolen and worsted cloths are made, is the coat or covering of the sheep. A single wool fiber is a hair, fine and curly, varying in length from 1 inch to 8 inches. 8 inches. I mean, I know I've seen some really hairy sheep, but 8 inches? I mean, that's big. Yeah. Examined under the microscope, it is seen to have scales or serrations with pointed edges which stand out from the fiber. These scales open when warm and moist, somewhat as a pine cone does, and the edges interlock. Then as they cool, they draw together and dry, not opening again. This holds the fibers close together, causing shrinkage in the cloth and aiding in the felting process. So what she's just described is the fact that wool has this capacity to lock together and create felt, as anybody has discovered when they accidentally threw something woolen in the washing machine. That's the special capacity for wool, is that the individual fibers have little burrs, like little burrs on them, and little hooks, and they can kind of like hook together. And the heat and moisture that she's talking about, as far as yeah, doll clothes, exactly. Or you get like lots of baby-sized sweaters. That the agitation of the wool fiber when it's wet and hot, like hot water, it causes the kind of the shaft of the hair to open up, kind of like when you wash your hair. They always tell you to rinse your hair in cool water to smooth it down. The cuticle. The cuticle is like the outer covering of your hair. The sheep have the same thing, but their cuticle not only, kind of has that same, like, kind of like ours. It's sort of like a, like little, well, I guess like a pine cone, but those little, hair particles, what is the word I'm thinking of? Like the cellular structure, right? They're, like, pine cone, I think, is, I've never heard it described that way, and thinking about it, I think that's pretty a pretty excellent description. So, the heat and moisture cause it to open up, and then you have those little barbs on those pieces, as it kind of plumps up, and that is what interlocks in felting. Lots of animal hair, including humans, have that capacity. If you have, and I don't, because I've never really been involved in like esthetician type stuff, health and beauty, but my nieces are big time, and they can tell you everything from this type of very soft, smooth, fine hair to this type of very thick, curly hair, and it all has like numbers and letters and stuff. Like they were super interested in this. My son also is, because he's got curly hair. So, it's about the products that you use and all that stuff. So those curlier, coarser hair, human hair, you can get dreadlocks. I mean, it's the same exact idea as felting wool. Lately, I've been brushing my cat and making little balls out of her hair, and they felt together into a pretty tight little ball. And she's a cat. She's got very soft, smooth fur, but it's got those microscopic little barbs in the hair sheath that will grab and kind of felt together enough to hold them. It's not like wool, but it's close. So that was surprising to me when I was just messing around with a piece of her, a chunk of her hair from brushing her. I was thinking of making her a sweater out of her own hair. Okay. So, Wool fibers are more expensive than, you know what, I think I missed a point here. Let's see. Yeah, I did. Okay. Wool fiber is very soft, elastic, and varies greatly in strength. It is a poor conductor of heat, therefore it is desirable for clothing. It has a great affinity for dye. Its luster varies with its structure. Scales, that's what I was trying to think of. There's scales on the outside of hair, microscopically. The absorbent quality of wool is 8 to 14%, but may reach 30 to 50%. So this is something that's even more important about wool, in that it's better to wear wool in the summer too, but it's better to wear wool in the winter as a layer close to your body, touching your body, especially if you can get a wool that doesn't cause you to itch, because it, even more so than linen, will wick moisture away from your body and hold it. And wool is a fiber that can hold more than its weight in moisture. And, you know, we always talk about, you know, from a historical costuming perspective, you always hear like, oh, you know, bless them for wearing wool in the summer, like, oh my gosh. And actually, wool will get warm because it does trap body heat, and linen does not. Linen can reflect the body heat or kind of pull it away from you. But wool in the summer is not that bad, depending. So like, if you think about some of the cultures, and I mean, still culturally nomads, the Tuareg in Niger, they are still, I think, a highly nomadic group of people. They wear wool. They're out in the desert. They're wearing these wool tunics, these wool, like, and they're long, but they're loose fitting. They're not tight. And that's just fine for them. They're light colors, so they reflect sunlight, etc. So there's a lot of things that you can do with fibers like natural fibers to cool or warm yourself in ways that synthetic fibers just cannot do. Now, performance fibers, in terms of like athletics, workout clothes, that kind of stuff, they also have these special properties as far as wicking moisture away from your body, etc. But they do not have the same properties that linen and wool do. Anybody who has left a garment in a gym bag knows what I'm talking about. Because linen and wool can it can kind of dissipate body odor and just like the volatile chemicals that are in your sweat, whereas workout gear, those types of workout gear that are, meant to wick the water away from your body, are not capable of doing that. And so that's why, they sell detergents specific for getting the stink out of workout clothing. So I have majorly gotten off topic here. I wanted to get to weaving and all that stuff, but maybe we'll come back to this because I want to jump over to printed and painted fabrics. But yeah, so, let me real quick, I'll read to you the part about silk, the beginning of silk. Silk fiber is a secretion, that sounds so gross, emitted by a silkworm in the formation of a cocoon, in which the worm encloses itself before its transformation into a chrysalis. It is the strangest of the four fibers. It is smooth and structureless, but very elastic. Silk fiber may be reeled from cocoons in lengths from 400 to 1,300 yards. It has a greater affinity for dyes than cotton or linen, and takes the highest luster of the four fibers. It is a poor conductor of heat. Its absorbent qualities are 10% to 17% and may reach 30%. Silk is going to make you hot. So silk and wool are warm clothing, and linen and cotton are cool clothing. But there are layers, there are orders of magnitude in the layers of how you should wear them based on whether you're trying to keep yourself warm or you're trying to get, sweat away from your body and kind of have some air circulation under there. I don't know. It makes a lot of sense once you understand kind of the properties of clothing, or these clothing fibers. Why people wore what they wore. And, again, we get into this Industrial Revolution. By this point, 1916, we did have rayon. Rayon popped up in France, I believe, in the late 1800s. I can't remember the exact dates. It's sometime in the 1880s or the 1890s. Rayon becomes faux silk, a way of creating cheaper fibers to imitate silk. And then by 1920 something, we get rayon here in the U.S. And their process is patented here in the U.S. for our rayon manufacture. Rayon is made from cellulose, from wood pulp, so it does have a natural beginning, but it goes through so much chemical processing, it should never be considered a natural fiber. And it simply does not have the same properties. It doesn't have like the wicking and warming or cooling properties. And then, you've got all of your total synthetics. So starting with nylon around World War II, and then from nylon you get polyester and acrylic and all that stuff. And those are all, so much a part of our clothing today. But anything with like polyester and acrylic in it is going to be terrible, and so you think about polycotton as, a fiber. The polycotton yardage that we would get in the 70s, it was so exciting to people because it was cheap, right? And it was, you could get it. They would manufacture it in all kinds of different prints and things, and it was cheap. But we know today that it's so much better to sew with 100% cotton to make a quilt than it is to try to, finagle, right? Well, exactly. No ironing, for sure. That was an important aspect, I think, of any of those synthetics when you're coming to clothing. Wash and wear. You can hang it out to dry and then just put it on. It wasn't wrinkly. If it did get a wrinkle, you probably could never get the wrinkle out because a wrinkle in something polyester can get set in. I have some fabric that is polycotton and there's a wrinkle in it I just cannot get out. So I've had to cut around it. But yeah, and it's just really so interesting that like the ability to not have to iron anymore, the ability to like throw things in the washer and the dryer, and that's so fast. But think about these aspects. It doesn't cool your body. It gets stinky. And oils, anything oily that gets on polycotton or polyester is like, forget it. It's not coming out. My grandmother could get stains out, but for the most part, if you get if wearing a polyester shirt and you're cooking and you don't wear an apron and you get a splash of, oil or something on that polyester shirt, is not looking good for your shirt. Because it's oil in oil, it's petroleum based polyester and, a cooking oil are gonna just absolutely love each other. Whereas on a natural fiber, it will kind of sit on the surface of the fiber and you have a better chance of getting it out. So, these are all the things. It's like the pluses and the minuses of why our clothes are made out of the fibers that they're made out of. I mean, it's again cost. It's again this idea of like, I don't have to do all of these like I don't have to make the thing. I don't have to have these laborious laundry processes. Ironing, I don't have to do that. And it's supposed to look like progress. But, in the whole scheme of things, you look at how much fiber refuse that the clothing industry makes. I personally, all of my fabric scraps, when I'm sewing, I keep them and I use them to stuff the stuffing. And I have sent them at times to some recycling places, other places, but I'm not throwing my scraps in the landfills. However, manufacturing most definitely is. They punch out shapes, the clothing shapes, all the pattern pieces out of these big pieces of cotton, of fabric. And then all of that cabbage, it's all refuse. It's not saved. It's not reused in any way most of the time. And so that's, these are some of the things that are about fast fashion that cause such problems for us. I could go on forever. I have real feelings about, the whole idea of fast fashion and the guilt I feel around contributing to it myself in the past and still even at times. I mean, I still buy t-shirts. And I'll be the first one to tell you that a t-shirt, cotton t-shirts are very bad for the environment because of the process they go through. So, yeah. It is hard to find 100% cotton shirts, absolutely. So much stuff now, especially like if you, your kind of department store or big box discount store clothing is either going to be a blend or those fibers like tencel and modal and all that, they're basically rayon. And even though they're very soft, there's some like Skims, I think they make those like no seam underwear and things. There's a bunch of different companies that make that stuff, but that is synthetic. It is not a natural fiber. It is, again, it's part of what's causing our world problems. No matter how nice it feels on your body, it's not good for the environment. So, all right. So I kind of didn't cover as much as I wanted to with with Lippincotts, but so maybe we'll have to come back to it. Yes, rayon shrinks. I found that out the hard way when I was in high school, and I bought this gorgeous blouse and skirt out of rayon. Didn't know. Threw it in the laundry like almost right away and went, oh no, it doesn't fit anymore. And rayon to sew with rayon is horrible. I do not love rayon at all. It is the absolute worst. Okay. So let us find where I was in this book. Bear with me for just a minute. Okay, here we go. I think. Yes, there we go. Okay. So we left off, we had finished the manual processes, hand processes. And we're going to get into the machine printing processes. Before I do, this is my friend Amanda. She has these big, beautiful, like, they're not even a postcard. I don't know what to call them. Like, it's a giant business card. Yesterday's treasures, today's style. Unity quilts. I don't think she has a website, but if you ever run across her, she's good. She's a good egg. Okay. Oh, let me put myself in the corner here. Okay. So this is a copper plate toile by Hewitt. And I think if I remember correctly, we learned about Hewitt in It's either the Heritage of Cotton or the Chintz book. I know that Hewitt was mentioned. 1786, entitled La Liberté Américaine. It's in red. This should have been in red and white. I think this ended up being a scan out of my book because it looks a lot darker than it does here. This almost looks like it's like a photocopy. But here in the book, you can tell that, like, you know, the fabric itself is faded, but you can tell, like, some of the lines, some of the fine lines in here, that you can see it better in the book. But this is something that, you know, has got a lot of fine lines and detail, and that's indicative of that copper plate printing process that we're going to talk about. Okay, so as a reminder, what we are reading here is America's Printed and Painted Fabrics, 1600 to 1900. It was written by Florence Pettit in 1970. And we are on, oh gosh, what chapter? I think chapter 2? No, we're still in chapter 1. Still in chapter 1. And the section that we're in now is machine printing processes. So the need for more and more printed cloth led to a desire for faster, more uniform printing methods and culminated in the invention of machines for printing. The swift changes of fashion, a marker expanded by the population growth, and better dyes kept the presses going once they had started. Swift changes in fashion, you say? Yes, indeed, Lippincott agrees. I love it when all this stuff kind of dovetails together. This all came about through these steps in the broad chronology of fabric printing. First, clay tablets or rollers were used, then hand-cut wooden blocks, then metal parts were added to the blocks to give precision of detail and strength so that the blocks would not break down with repeated use. Metal blocks were used briefly, mainly for printing hot wax. The Perrotine press was developed to print 4 blocks at a time. Then finally, metal hand-engraved plates of copper or brass were made and used and printed in large presses before copper roller printing came to be used most universally. So 1, copper plate printing. This method of textile printing began about 1750 and lasted until about 1830. So this is something that Roderick Kirikoff also does talk about in The American Quilt that, you know, again, Jill and I are reading over on Quilt Nerding. And the thought process is here, if you are ever looking at an old quilt and there's any, you know, discussion over, oh, is it, you know, block printed, plate printed, roller printed. If it's newer than 1830, you can guess that it's roller printed. Now the technology has, you know, it evolved between then and today. Of course, now we're using a lot of digital stuff, but you know, anywhere where roller printing is still in use. Things are pretty consistent between 1830 and you know, roller printing technology of modern eras. So it's safe to say that almost all of your fabrics, unless they are digital, screen printed, or something else, most fabrics and quilts are going to be roller printed. But if you get something that is so old that it's got these old toiles in it, then you can start talking about, like, oh, was it copper plate? Was it roller? Is there block printing involved? Most of us don't have access to these kinds of quilts, unfortunately. So, you know, in my mindset, it's like you could probably be safe in assuming most of your fabrics you're running across are roller printed. So, I digressed. All right, so copper plate printing began about 1750 and lasted until 1830. It cannot be called accurately a machine method, but we describe it here because a heavy iron press was indispensable in achieving the pressure required to print. The process was, however, essentially a hand operation and never became completely mechanized. That's interesting. I guess, I don't know. I mean, I understand the concept behind that type of printmaking. But I guess it just never occurred to me that, like, yeah, you really do need a person, like, running the machine. The method grew out of the discovery that small hand-engraved plates, like artist etchings, could be printed with ordinary printer's ink on the same presses that were used for relief printing of broadsides on paper from type and woodcuts. The engraved copper plate was fastened to the flat bed of the press, face up, inked, and then wiped clean so that only the engraved lines held ink. The cloth was placed on the plate. A padding, probably of felt, was put in place. The upper metal plate was moved into position. A geared lever was used to apply pressure, and the color was lifted out of the lines onto the piece of fabric by the intaglio method described earlier. It was at first used in America for printing embroidery patterns on cotton, and later for commemorative kerchiefs, maps, and religious broadsides on white satin intended to be kept as souvenirs or framed as pictures. That's interesting. I didn't know about that. A special press was later developed in England called a rolling press or star wheel press, which was operated by a large winch that the printer turned by using both his arms and feet. Good grief. And it had two large rollers whose mangle-like pressure squeezed the cloth against a copper plate. Okay. I can't quite picture what this arms and feet part is. I'm assuming that it's something like where you're having to walk it, I guess. But essentially what the machine itself is, like, the copper plate is here and the fabric is on top and it's being pushed through two rollers. Like, I mean, she mentions the mangle, you know, the laundry mangle. It's like those two rollers and it goes through. The rolling press would do the same thing. I actually have a small rolling press for metalworking, but it would work the same way. So I'm guessing that by winch, she's just meaning something that's going around. So I'm thinking it's something that you're using the strength of your arms to turn, but you're also having to walk it. It's so big. I'm guessing. Okay. This, or a similar press, made it possible to use much larger plates from 18 inches to 36 inches across instead of printer's ink. And instead of printer's ink, a dye and paste mixture was perfected. In 1752 in Ireland, the first color-fast dye and paste printing was done on a continuous length of cloth. This marked the true beginning of copper plate textiles. So that's interesting. But that was in 1752 in Ireland. You don't hear much about Ireland being part of the textile market. In 1803, in Scotland, Robert Kirkwood invented a still better press that involved two parts: the D roller and a registering device called a ratchet, which greatly improved all subsequent copperplate printing. This made it possible to move the cloth along when the flat side of the D roller came around, thus accurately spacing the next position of the print on a piece of cloth from 10 to 14 yards long. The pictorial, finely detailed prints were of the class generally called toiles, and as already mentioned, most copperplate prints were done in one color: black, purple, dark blue, or red. In the beginning, the method was regarded as a great improvement over block printing because of the greater size of the plates, the design detail possible, and the partially mechanized printing. But by 1830, the slow and rather cumbersome process was found to have its own limitations, and it soon became obsolete. It was said it can be counted as one of the earliest casualties of the Industrial Revolution and was driven out of existence by the demands for faster and cheaper production. Da da da! And there we are today. Faster and cheaper production. And digital printing. Faster and cheaper production. Not as good, but faster and cheaper production. Okay.
So, number 2, roller printing. The next step in the search for speed and efficiency was to form the flat copper plate into a seamless cylinder and to use it as a roller for printing. This was at last a much faster way to print fabrics that were by 1780 available in great quantities from India and were beginning to come from American mills. Again, the character of the designs changed because patterns were limited in size to the circumference of the roller, about 16 inches. So 16 inches, you're talking about repeats that can only be but so wide, based on what can wrap around the roller. The roller printing mechanism, first patented by a Scotsman, Thomas Bell, in 1785, to print 6 colors at one time, was first powered by water, then by steam. It was essentially the same as modern presses, though present-day machines will print as many as 16 colors at one time and are electrical marvels of speed and precision. We actually have another picture here. Is it going to be the right picture? Yes. And here we have calico printing in 1835 from an engraving in The History of Cotton Manufacture by E. Baines, London, 1835. And I think this is the same picture that's in the American Quilt, I think, because I think we looked at this the other day. Bell's patent does not mean that he was the first to invent the use of the printing roller, as Oberkampf in France and others claim to have used rollers slightly earlier than his patent. Even earlier, wallpaper had been printed from wood and metal rollers. So it's really interesting. I think that, paper printing is definitely informing fabric printing. We didn't start printing on fabric until we had perfected paper printing. And so you think paper printing, book printing started with movable type. So that's, it was Gutenberg. Is it 1390 something, 1380 something? And so then, we keep perfecting these methods in printing until we get to the printing of fabric. And it takes a couple hundred years, It's kind of interesting to think about. As we know, pre-Christian printers had used rollers by hand long before. It took several centuries to go back to it and discover that the roller provided, if not the best, at least the fastest way to print. So I guess apparently we had some kind of pre-printing situation, which she doesn't seem to have been very clear about. Okay, I was totally off. Thank you, Druid. Here's something else to add to my giant timeline that needs to go around my entire room. So Johannes Gutenberg invented the metal movable type printing press around 1438 to 1450. Okay, so the middle of the 1400s, not the end of the 1300s as I had thought. Woodblock prints began to go out of style, and with the advent of roller printing were soon almost abandoned. Blocks numbering in the thousands must have provided fuel for many bonfires, because blocks of any real age are now rare. Yeah, they probably got rid of them, and in some ways it might have been, to keep other people from stealing their designs. And in other ways, I think sometimes people there were times when I was like, well, this is of no use. There's no point in keeping it. They weren't sentimental about stuff in particular. Gutenberg began his secret printing experiments and construction of the press in Strasbourg, 1450. Okay. Printing press was fully operational and used to print text in 1455. And I guess that's when the famous Gutenberg Bible was published. When I think about it, you think about those Gutenberg Bibles, and really how thick a Bible actually is. If you're a Christian and you own a Bible, you know that the pages are super, super thin. And I'm talking King James Bible here. pages are super, super thin because there are so many of them. If a Bible is printed on heavier paper, it is like really thick. So think about those giant Gutenberg Bibles. They're huge. And what an incredible improvement it was for people that, now Gutenberg has this printing press. We can print them quickly. We don't have to have the monks with their feathered quills and their illuminated manuscripts writing forever. We can now print that. But still, you have to do it page by page, right? The Bible is huge. I mean, what a hassle if you think about it. Like if I had to print, give me digital printing any day. Good grief. Okay. For direct roller printing in simplest terms, a copper roller is engraved with the design, inked, and rolled against the cloth, which pulls the die out of the engraved portions and is thus printed by the intaglio method. The designer of a roller print must plan his pattern so that it repeats exactly and neatly fills the circumference of the printing roller, of about 15 inches or 16 inches. This means that when you look at the finished cloth, you will see the same design repeated down the length, with a unit reappearing every 15 inches. If the fabric is a stripe running the length of the cloth, you will, of course, see nothing at all but a continuous stripe. But it will have been printed from a new ink wiping printing sequence every 15 inches. So inking, wiping, printing. Inking, wiping, printing. So that's what all of the rollers and stuff that's happening is that's what's accomplishing. The design must also fill the length of the roller, which is the width of the cloth, and can be from 36 inches to 52 inches or more. At first, rollers were engraved by hand, and skilled engravers were the prized employees of the early print works. Then rollers for small pattern designs were made by being pressed or indented into a measured repeat by hardened steel patterns, or mill rollers. Later, and at present, rollers are made by a pantographic process photographically, and the design is etched into the roller to the proper depth by acids. And I think that would have been any company that is still using more traditional fabric printing methods is still doing something like this. They're etched rollers. Now, they're not etched into the metal now. It's more of like I guess it is. If I remember correctly, it is not a completely solid steel roller anymore. It is a plate, a flexible plate that is wrapped around the roller, and the plate itself is etched. And in some cases, I don't know if they might use, any more modern space age plastic kind of stuff might be involved in the process as well. I'm really not sure. But yeah, this is a process that gets us up to pretty close to today, before our digital printing processes. The finest liner detail can be printed from a finely etched roller, but also large solid areas of color can be printed from parts that have been textured with parallel lines to hold the dye and paste mixture, which distributes itself evenly on the cloth in one solid spot. And hopefully this next picture is going to be, because you know what, guys, I forgot to renumber them like I promised. Well, I was doing absolutely nothing this weekend. This is what I should have been doing. But okay. So here you see. Here you see what's happening. You've got a cast iron pressure cylinder. I've got all of these different rollers. And so number one, engraved printing roller for yellow. So it is getting down in, or I guess this thing is giving it the color. And then you've got number 2, red, it's giving it the color. And I guess this is a wiper thing. And then you've got blue. So it goes through all of these. That's wild. So that would be, that's 3 colors. And 3 colors get you pretty far. So, let me read through these steps and then we'll kind of wrap up for today. So, the roller printing machine consists of 5 basic parts as shown in figure 31. So this is what we're looking at here. So this is a steam drying chamber. So I'll put this back. So number 1, a large padded cylinder around which the cloth rolls. This is the pressure cylinder and holds the fresh cloth against the printing roller. Number 2, the engraved copper roller bearing the design for one color. Number 3, 2 scraping knives for each color roller. The cleaning doctor. Okay, so that's what this is. Okay, I didn't really quite understand what this was. But it's scraping, it's pulling all that extra dye off of the roller. So it's just leaving behind what's in the engraved bits. So the cleaning doctor for wiping excess ink off the roller before each impression. And the lint doctor for scraping lint off the roller after each impression. Okay, so it's being cleaned twice as it comes around here. I guess it comes around this way, right? To be clockwise. So coming out of the ink and it's scraping that and then it's printing and then it's being wiped. Wow, that's pretty amazing. The inking roller, which is half immersed in the ink trough and rolls against the printing roller, depositing ink in the engraved impressions of the printing roller. The ink trough, containing the dye and paste mixture or other special printing substances, that's number 5, sorry. Other printing, other printing substances for variations of direct printing, such as mordants, discharge chemicals, etc. Paste is usually gum tragacanth, gum arabic, or gum Senegal, or a similar synthetic, is used with most dyes and other media simply as a thickener for liquids, so that they will roll on and off the plates more evenly than a water-like liquid. A multicolor press has only one padded pressure cylinder, and this is surrounded by the color rollers that print. Each color must have a separate engraved roller with its own set of scrapers, ink roller, and ink trough. Only the printing rollers are motor-driven. The others operate by friction from them. Colors are applied to the cloth in a sequence more rapid than the eye can follow, usually starting with the lightest color and proceeding to the dark. The fabric rolls off the press completely printed and goes directly on to a steaming and drying operation, or stretching, tenturing, polishing, shrinking, or whatever is required. The speed and precision of a modern press are remarkable. It is even possible to print directly on both sides of a fabric in perfect register in what is called a duplex printer, so that the color and design are exactly the same on both sides. I have never seen such a thing. I can't think of a single fabric item I own that's like that, printed on both sides. The discharge method, discovered and used by early printers, is still in common use by machine printing and produces a pattern that also looks the same on both sides of the cloth. The resist process is primarily a hand method and is seldom done by machine. Okay, so let's leave off there. Obviously, it is 4 o'clock my time. What do I do with my bookmark? Okay, so again, I apologize. I will not be here on Thursday, but I will be here tomorrow with Jill. So for quilt nerding, I'll be back Monday regular time. So And then we will let you guys, I will let you guys know about August. Jill and I will probably go over it tomorrow, but I will let you guys know for sure what my August looks like, because it's probably going to be real spotty this month, and I'm not doing much research, so it is what it is. Yeah. So I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon and evening. Link. I'm sorry. What was I supposed to give you a link to? Remind me. I'm completely blanking. But yeah, we'll Druid's bear? Druid, did you have a picture of a bear? Did I miss that? She's probably walked away from her computer. She's stirring something. Uh-oh. Let's see. Read above. Okay. Did I miss it? Oh, the little bear. I'm sorry. Oh, on your Instagram. Okay. Oh. Ah, okay. You know what? Bear with me 1 second. We will show this. Oh my gosh, that is so cute. Ah! All right, let me put it up here. That is adorable. How cute. Look at it. I love it. It's got glasses. Oh gosh, 107 weeks ago. So I obviously looked at this and loved it. And I still love it. Okay, I recognize this fabric. This is a I want to say that's one of the like the Ely Walker 100-year print fabrics, or one of the ones that they reproduced. Excuse me. Well, thank you for sharing that, Druid. And so that has the fabric is printed on both sides. Okay, interesting. Well, very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I will let you guys go. Onto your other Monday adventures. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I'll see you tomorrow if you follow Quilt Nerding, and otherwise I will see you later. And yeah, stay cool. I hope it's not getting too terribly hot. I feel like it's going to, but anyway, wear your linen. It wicks the moisture. I'll see you guys soon. Mwah. Bye.